Another rainy afternoon, but it's okay. I better find something to do, no time to waste. 'Cause I've been trying to ignore the noise inside. I need some answers by the end of the night. And the sun is shining, can you feel it now? There's a promise in the sky after all the rain is gone. There's still our airwaves, so I turn off my radio. After all, where there is life, there's hope. And I try to fight this fear with faith inside. I know this demon's looking for a place to hide. Lord, give me all the strength I need to carry on. So I'm still standing when the morning comes. And the sun is shining. Can you feel it now? There's a promise in the sky after all the rain is gone. There's still our airwaves, so I turn off my radio. After all, where there is life, there's hope. I refuse to stay silent. This much I have learned, when it seems like there's no way out for me, that's when the tide starts to turn. And the sun is shining. Can you feel it now? There's a promise in the sky after all the rain is gone. There's still our airwaves, so I turn off my radio. After all, where there is life, there's hope. And you gotta believe it. And the sun is shining. Can you feel it now? There's a promise in the sky after all the rain is gone. There's still our airwaves, so I turn off my radio. After all, where there is life, there's hope. Don't they know that where there's life, there's hope? Last thing that should ever die is hope.
Audio, please. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. God bless you. Welcome to Daily Prayer for Our Children. Good to have everybody in the house. I see you there, Archbishop. God bless you. To everybody that will be joining later as well. Those people that go back to watch as well. God bless you. Thank you for joining. I'm so excited. I don't know whether you can hear in my voice, but I'm extremely excited. It's good to have you all in the house. As always, I hope you've had a wonderful, wonderful day wherever you are across the globe. I know some of you, your day is just starting, and if it's just starting, make sure you have a fantastic one. And for some of us, we're almost at the end of another day, but some of you are back in the evening or afternoon, just like my sister is, where she's going to be joining us from. God bless you too, Ma. Good to have you on board. So today is the long-awaited day that we've got that special guest of ours in the house. We are going to be taught today. I told her I'm a student as well, so I got my pen and paper ready. I want to learn. You know me, whenever I have a guest, I get excited because they're going to impact knowledge. They're going to give us resources. And as always, please, 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 please ask questions. Ask questions. She wants us to ask questions. She's not afraid of our questions. So please ask questions. Look, we are all learning. It's a journey. There's no shame if we don't know something. I'm sure she's going to bring a whole wealth of knowledge that I know nothing about, and I'm excited to learn. So please fasten your seatbelt. She has facilitated timing there for us to ask all our questions as well. So please make use of it. During the stream, I'm going to display all her information as well. I think she's only on Instagram for now. She does have a website. So if you need to reach out to her, you can also do that as well. You know me, I told you, I'm a facilitator. I don't hoard people. If you get somebody to connect with on this platform, I've always told you, go for it. You don't need my permission. You don't need to come and consult me first. If you feel they're going to be resourceful to you, they're going to help you, please go. The only thing I ask you is please don't abuse them. Do not abuse them. Don't go asking for discount and all sort of thing and saying you're coming. Nah, that's not what the Bible teaches. Yeah. So please, whatever they call the price, if they decide to give you a discount, all good and well. But yeah, we must be good Christians. We have to be. Yeah. Okay, good. My aunt is in the house. Can I just give a big shout to my aunt? Yesterday was her birthday. I was expecting her to turn out, but I think she went out with friends and family to have a wonderful time. So my aunt has begun another new year yesterday. So a big shout to Auntie Cecilia. God bless you. You know how emotional I become this time of the year every year when I get to just celebrate you on that day and shout your name out to the whole world. So I look forward to spending so many more years with you in the mighty name of Jesus. I pray for the blessings of God over you, over your children, your grandchildren, even your generations that are yet to be born in the mighty name of Jesus. I pray for more strength in the mighty name of Jesus. You know, Caleb said, he said, I am as strong today as I was 40 years ago. So, and I pray for strength in your bone as well, in your marrow, in your tissue, in your muscles, in your blood, in your water, everywhere, strength in the mighty name of Jesus. I hope you had a wonderful day yesterday. She couldn't be with us yesterday and she sent me her message. So please, if you can't help me to celebrate my aunt on Facebook, you will find her on Facebook. So please help me celebrate her. Last year, about this time, we were gathering to do a big do. And this year she's jetting off somewhere without me again. So she's back packing her bags right now. So good to see you, ma. God bless you. Another grandma in the house. God bless you. Auntie Christiana, God bless you. Good to have you on board. Thank you for joining. All my grandmas in the house, you know how much I love you and I appreciate you. So thank you for being here. So without further ado, everybody, as always, I've committed this into God's hand to lead us. I want my sister to maximize the time that she wants to give us, and I want to give us the opportunity as well. So I'm not going to take too much of her time, but I do want you to have some information about her as I'm introducing her. I told you so much about her already. So she's coming with a whole wealth of knowledge, resources, skills. You can see the diversity, different areas that she has worked there. 18 years experience working with clients in all ages. Can you imagine? NHS, education, theatre, forensic. Wow, that forensic really got me going, to be honest. But maybe that would be a conversation for another day, because I see forensic and I'm thinking, is it crime? Is it police? Is it what? You know, that kind of thing. But I didn't ask. But it got me interested anyway. So yeah, and I see drama therapist. I don't know what that is either. So I tried to ask my daughter. She couldn't come up with anything. So maybe when she comes on board, we have that conversation as well. So yeah, she's now into public and private sector. She was in the NHS. So obviously that tells me she has a lot of ethical backgrounds as well on how things are done in the UK and things like that. So for you guys that are not residing in the UK, please just be cautious, always seek guidance. I'm sure she's going to say that wherever you're residing, but obviously the host and herself we are, as God has it, residing in the UK at the moment. We might be jetting off to Bahamas next time, we don't know. So, but here we are at the moment. So yes, this is the information about our therapist this evening. So everybody, please help me to give a very big, warm PCC welcome to our guest in the house, and that is Janine Wilson. So everybody, she is coming from very far to join us. So please just bear with the internet. She is live with us right now. Okay, that's brilliant. I can see her. Just bear
Can
with
you
the
hear me?
internet. Yes, I can hear you. The internet is fluctuating
Fantastic.
seriously at the moment, but we can see you.
We'll work with right. I have to say, first of all, I don't think I've ever experienced an introduction such as that. I felt it was giving Wembley Arena. I was like, am I gonna run out on stage and thank the crowd? I was like, that was amazing. Thank you so much, and I hope that what I share now will kind of live up to the.
It will. Don't worry. You can't disappoint us. You can't. You come highly recommended, so I know we're not going to be disappointed.
Thank you.
So please take the forum, introduce yourself, let us know where we can connect with you and all that kind of thing, what you do. You know, I even pulled your leg there, drama therapist, if you want to tell us what that is.
Yes, of course. So you're welcome. Thank you everybody for your welcomes and stuff in the chat. My name's Janine Wilson. As you know, we've already seen the things that I do, so I won't go into it too much. Maybe in the Q&A we might have time, but I want to make sure we get to the content. I'm currently doing a project in Barbados, which is why fortunately my background is great, so I might be going in and out of the screen, and we pray that the internet will hold up.
Amen.
But for now we're doing good. But yeah, so in terms of drama therapist and cognitive behavior psychotherapist. So drama therapist, basically I do therapy, but we use all aspects of the creative process to facilitate the therapy. So that might be drawing, movement, role play, acting, it might be story writing. So some people find it quite difficult to out their difficulties in the first person. So we might use a character, we might use a storybook, we might use a folk tale or something, or, you know. So basically, drama therapist is we put the drama in. Basically, that's what we do. That's all right. So, should we start into it?
Yes, please. If you're okay with that, I'm absolutely okay with that. So just let me know when you want me to move on.
Yeah, let's go to the second slide. So
that would be fun.
Today we're going to be talking about child and adolescent mental health. I always start off with this in terms of people have, logged into their, they've logged online, as we were saying at the beginning, whether it be the morning, the evening, getting ready to go to bed, middle of the day. Some content that we discuss today could be challenging for people. So we are going to be talking about emotional mental health. We are going to be talking about harm. So harm to others, harm to self, and also harm from others. I'm going to have some conversation in relation to end of life and suicidal thoughts. We are talking about take time away from the content if you need to. We know that, when we get onto some of the statistics, we look at, 1 in 5 children are experiencing mental, for example. So it wouldn't be above and beyond to think that there's some kind of experience in those that are watching of the intent. So really sure you do look after yourselves. Speak to someone in your support network after the session if you're impacted by any topics discussed. Also remember that while we are a community, we are, working together and supporting each other, this space is online, which means it isn't confidential in terms of things can be shared, things can be recorded. So in a part, I just ask, please speak about anyone's name or any identifying information. Sometimes, and you might want to ask a question. I'm here any questions, But if it's about anything specific to do with you or a child or a young person, just be very aware that we are online, and that just to kind of just remind people of that at the start. Yeah, lovely. Next one, please.
Yeah.
So we're going to start off. So I kind of put aside about 45 minutes for us to go through what I would call the kind of the teaching / training part. So that's going to be me talking to you, and I'm going to ask you to interact a little bit as well in relation to child and adolescent mental health disorders and how they present. Some things that people think are mental health, actually not. And then also at the end, thinking about that what could be quite challenging, especially thinking about in relation to young people, harm and suicide. And then finally, really thinking of what can we do, because I think that's definitely what we want to end with. And what help can we do and where can we go?
Correct.
And then I've put aside, it may not take the entire time, but I put aside half an hour at the end if there were any questions or any reactions on anything that's come up in the session. Yeah,
that's fine.
So to the next slide. So what I'd like you to do is, if you grab your smartphones.
Okay.
This is my first assumption that everyone's got a smartphone.
Yeah.
If you don't have a smartphone, you never know, you might not. You go to we type it in the chat. We can to slido.com.
Slido.com.
Yeah.
Is that it? Slido.com.
Yes. SLIDO.com.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that it?
And then, and then the number pin is 96.
Oh, is that all one word or separate?
So just 906.
Okay. 906.
9996.
That's 999.
Yep.
6.
Yep.
Okay. That's it.
So if for any reason, yes, it. So if for any reason anybody can't scan the QR code, you can go to slido.com and you can type in that number. And I just like to find out in advance kind of what people feel like they know before we have this conversation. And then we're going to do the same thing at the end. So in the next kind of 45 minutes, half an hour, we'll scan the same thing again. And it's just two questions on there, two very simple questions on there. I have an understanding of mental health disorders and how they present in children and adolescents. And I would know how to respond my child or adolescent presented with self-harm or suicidal thoughts. So this is whether you strongly disagree, disagree, sure, agree, or strongly agree. So when you scan the QR code, it will take you directly to the page. And I'm just interested in kind of where we're all starting from. So,
okay. You want me to go to the next slide?
All right. So my voice matters. The place to be is Children Mental Health Week, which is why we're here. So to the end of this week, it's thinking about the voice of the child. We think about working with children and young people across the board. Unfortunately, a lot of children and young people don't experience being listened to. Yeah, and that's because of. I'm not necessarily going to ask you to answer directly, but just have some reflections on: do you listen to your children / teenagers? Got children and teenagers in your home? Just reflecting to yourself: do you feel like you listen to them? Why would their voice matter? This general kind of heading in relation to my voice matters. Okay, yeah, it does. But why? Just have a bit of a think to yourself about why their voice should matter. And then connecting a little bit, did your voice matter when you were a child? And thinking about your experience. So if you have children of your own, or maybe you work with children, or within your community, there's children, young people. So did you feel as the adult that your voice mattered when you were younger.
Hmm.
And then also reflecting on how did that impact your development. So if you feel that your voice did matter, do you think that that made you a particular way, grown older as you've become an adult? Or do you think it didn't impact? Maybe for you it didn't matter whether you were listened to or not. But these are just points that are helpful for us to think about in relation to topic of My Voice Matters. Yeah, great.
Next.
So should we go to the next one? Yes, please. So this is, as important to be clear, I know we've got people from all around the world, but this data is specific to those in the United Kingdom. So in 2023, approximately 1 in 5 children and teenagers aged 8 to 16 had a diagnosable mental health disorder. Approximately 1 in 4 17 to 19-year-olds had a diagnosable mental health disorder. The reason diagnosable is a really important point to make is that we know that while those numbers may appear, because 1 in 5 is what, 20%, 1 in 4 is 25%. While those numbers might appear low, I think it's important to state diagnosable means that they've actually felt that they have enough of a voice to share a concern, and they've gone for help. They've gone to their doctor, or they've told their parent carer, they've shared something at school or college. And there are so many young people that are undiagnosed because of the stigma around health, or because maybe unfortunately their voice currently isn't heard and they're unable to get the support that they need. In 8 to 10-year-olds, the probability of having a mental health disorder is similar in boys and girls. So we can see that kind of primary ages, so 8 to 10, there's not much, what's that, about 0.6% difference between the probability of having a disorder when we think about the binary of boy and girl. But look at that huge shift, that jump. When we get to 17 to 18-year-olds, the probability of having a mental health disorder drastically changed between boys and girls. Yeah, lots of different reasons and thought why that might be. Just in relation to what we know, the differences in society, for example, in relation to what's expected from girls and what's expected from boys might be part of it. And also, I'm going to go back to that diagnosable point, which basically is how much, when we look at what society sometimes tells boys in relation to help seeking, talking about your feelings, sharing that you're vulnerable, there's a lot of stigma, or there's a lot more stigma around boys and young men sharing their feelings and saying that they aren't okay. So we also might think about that being something to do with why there's such a drastic change in the percentage of experience of mental health disorders. Next slide, please. And here we've just got a few things that also came from the report from 2023. So more than 1 in 4 children aged 8 to 16, as we said, couldn't afford for their child to take part in activities outside school or college. 17 to 25-year-olds with a probable mental health disorder were 3 times more likely to not be able to afford to take part in activities such as sports, days out, etc. More than 1 in 4 children aged 8 to 16 had a parent who couldn't afford for their child to take part in activities outside of school. And children aged 11 to 16 years were 5 times more likely than those unlikely to have a mental disorder to have been bullied in comparison with those who haven't, and also even more likely to have been bullied online. So the reason that I made those connections is that what we see there is that money is a concern, socioeconomic status is a concern, social interaction is also a concern, bullying, education, worries about the world. So if we go on to the next slide, what we'll notice here is that a lot of the things that we worry about, that children and adolescents worry about, are actually the same as adults. Yeah? But they're actually just seen through a different lens. So if you think about it, relationships, those of us who are married, in relationship, single, divorced, widowed, etc. There's all kinds of worries in terms of our interrelational dynamics day to day. Now, children and young people may not necessarily be married, widowed, bereaved, etc. However, they're still navigating relationships. They're still thinking about, you know, Sarah Jane that upset them in the playground yesterday and how to deal with that, you know, or Kwame who has the nice lunch but doesn't want to share it with them, or the, you know, the person who's got the new trainers and they actually want the new trainers, but maybe mum can't afford the new trainers. Yeah. So what sometimes happens is, from an adult lens, we often hear, well, what have they got to be worried about? What have they got to be anxious about? You know, they're only young. They're only young. What we've got to think about is it actually, we are worrying a lot of the time about the same things, just through a different lens. Yeah. Again, money. I don't, you know, I'm sure many of us, it's all right. I'm sure many of us, you know, have had some money worry in our life. Yeah, in terms of where will it come from? How will I pay the school fees? How will I pay the mortgage? How will I pay the council tax? Blah, 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 right? While, again, children and young people don't have those specific worries, they are still worrying. A lot of the time, we don't realize how much children and young people worry about their parents. We think that we're not telling them or we're not letting them know that things are stressful. But children are very insightful and often know a lot more than we actually think they know. Yeah. So whether it be money, relationships, health and well-being, the world, you know, we can't turn on social media without hearing and seeing things, awful things that are happening in the world. And even as adults, we can find it difficult to understand, you know, why is there this war? Why is there this genocide? Why is there this hunger? What, all of these different things. And this is our adult brain trying to make it make sense. So if we think about children and young people, remember, within the development of the brain, certain areas of the brain don't fully develop until at least 25. So we have to think about the fact that these worries, the world, what's going on, education, just like how we worry about work and we think about that appraisal that maybe we've got next week, or will I get the promotion, or, you know, I've got that presentation due in 3 hours. Is my Wi-Fi gonna connect? You know, with all of these different worries that we can have. Their work is basically school. So just in the same way that we will worry about things is the same way that they will. Yeah. So this is how, so if you go, can we go to the next slide? Thanks. So I just wanted us to go through, I won't read through, you know, every bullet point, but I just want us to think a little bit about how some of these worries can show up. Yeah. So we're just going to go briefly on to the difference between anxiety disorders and depressive disorders. Yeah. So social anxiety, it's a disorder also called social phobia. It's a long-term and overwhelming fear of social situations. Now, a lot of people sometimes say, oh, they're just shy. You know, they'll grow out of it. That's all right. Come on, go and say hello to auntie. Go on. And we don't know why they're hiding behind our leg, or they don't want to go, or whatever. Now, sometimes this can be shyness. Yeah. But if we're moving into what we call social anxiety, it's more than shyness. It's a real intense fear of, whether it be shame, embarrassment, getting things wrong, tripping up, all of those things, you know, tripping up in the playground, or it's a real fear. And I guess that's the difference between shyness and, you know, just kind of maybe not liking being in social situations and actually having anxiety around it. Yeah. So that worrying about those social situations, it could be everyday activities, school, college. As they get older, it could be parties. It could be worrying overly. We call something called rumination, where we just think over and over and over and over, right? Worrying about what I could do that might be socially unacceptable. Teenagers, Every teenager is thinking about what their friend thinks, or what social media is telling them to do, or what this influencer posted on Instagram, and what, you know, all of that. Again, through our adult lens, we might think, what's that to worry about?
Yeah.
But what's really important is to, again, that my voice matters. What is the child's lens? What are they experiencing? Yeah. And sometimes this can also show up as feeling sick, sweating, trembling, pounding heart. Some young ones, some primary school age young ones, you know, that you might get a lot of, oh, you know, mommy, my tummy hurts. Daddy, I need to go to the toilet. That kind of thing. So sometimes it will be a somatic, so a bodily symptom is what you might expect. Yeah.
Yeah.
So next slide, please. That's social anxiety. And just to pause and say as well, I know I am kind of doing a whistle stop tour on these, but again, if there's any questions, please do note them down in the chat, or you know, write them down for yourselves, and then I can go through it at the end if you need to. So separation anxiety. So separation anxiety is excessive worry, more than developmentally appropriate, when separated from a parent or primary caregiver. And even the thought or the anticipation of that separation can cause high levels of anxiety. Yeah. And the reason we say more than developmentally appropriate is because we would expect a toddler to find it hard to be away from their parent. We would expect someone, you know, maybe 6, 7, 8, you know, 6, 7. We'd probably expect babies, exactly. We'd expect babies to, you know, cry or be a little bit upset when they are separated from their caregiver. But this is why we say when it becomes a disorder is when it's more than developmentally appropriate. We can see sometimes separation anxiety moving into, you know, teenagers, for example. Anyone that's got teenagers will know there's usually that developmentally appropriate time where they want not much to do with us, where they kind of say, all right, this is the time when I want to go out with my friends by myself, or I want to start taking the train or the bus by myself. And there's that developmentally appropriate separation. And if we notice that those things aren't happening, that's when we might start thinking around separation anxiety. So as it says here, difficulty being away from parents, excessive worry about danger to self or to that particular parent caregiver. And then that last one's important, that hypervigilance. So constantly checking, reassurance seeking. So if you do, for example, leave that child or young person maybe being babysat by somebody else, they'll constantly be asking, you know, when's dad coming back? How long until mum comes back? I thought they were gonna be here at 5 and it's now 5:10. Why are they not here yet? So that constant checking and reassurance seeking may be a sign of separation anxiety. Next slide, please. And then generalized. So this is, again, another disorder that produces fear, worry, and a constant feeling of being overwhelmed. So the difference between, you know, generalized anxiety and social and separation is that this is literally what it says on the tin. It's general worry about absolutely everything, right? So it's going to be being easily fatigued, difficulty concentrating, muscle tension. So if there's a constant, discussion about feeling achy and things like that, that's because a lot of the time, the amount of anxiety, imagine constantly worrying all the time. And again, from an adult lens, because obviously these are disorders that can be had in childhood or in adulthood. But again, it's that feeling of this worry getting in the way of sleep. This worry meaning that, I'm restless, I'm on edge, etc. Yes, next slide, please. Thanks.
Okay.
And then we have something called OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder. And this is usually shown through excessive thoughts or obsessions that lead to repetitive behaviors, which we call compulsions. Now, OCD, I think, definitely is something that over, I would say maybe the past 10 or so years, definitely I've experienced in the past 10 or so years, is something that is a term that unfortunately is thrown around a little bit. So, people will say, oh, I like my sheets folded in a particular way. That's my OCD. Or, oh, I'm really OCD about cleaning, etc. And what I just remind people is that OCD is a really debilitating disorder. Yeah. It's something that really gets in the way of somebody's functioning and gets in the way of somebody's life. Yeah. It can be to do with a fear of germs, contamination, aggressive thoughts towards oneself, unwanted or forbidden thoughts. So what we find is that since the pandemic, there's definitely been an increase in OCD presentations. As you can imagine, this was the time when every possible advert was telling us, keep clean, wash your hands. They were showing us how to wash our hands on the television, because clearly some people didn't know how to do it before, I remember when that was going, I was like, are you really showing us how to wash our hands? Yeah. However, we're aware that many people didn't know. So, okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. And things like, teaching us how to sneeze and how to cough into tissues and things. And while I speak about that in jest a little bit, there is the very serious side of it, which is, unfortunately, this did lead to a lot of OCD thoughts, because we suddenly went from, okay, yeah, I'm supposed to wash my hands fine, but we went from this real, not programming is the wrong word, but yeah, basically, I think that's probably the right word, this real obsession. And obviously, we know we had to do it. We were in a pandemic. There was reasons that we had to get to that level of intensity in relation to hand washing and things like that. But what we know is that those who had OCD before, or who it I guess it was created in after, it was due to excessive cleaning, etc. Yeah. We also know that sometimes with obsessions, depending on, as it says there, in relation to unwanted, forbidden, or taboo thoughts, we know that OCD can also find itself in areas that are how would I put it? So in areas that are, so for example, if you do certain things in a particular way every single week, so if you go to the same church, or you go to the same community club, or you go to the same, I don't know, park or something, right? Again, that can, for some children and young people, become ritualized, right? So for example, as I've put here, you might just be telling your child or saying to your child, all right, Nathan, make sure you keep your bedroom tidy. All right, Nathan, make sure you keep your bedroom tidy. And that might be something that is said every single night. That is, Nathan's reminded all the time, make sure you keep your bedroom tidy. But depending on how Nathan has taken that in, this could turn into an obsession or a compulsion, in terms of the thought turning into a feeling of, well, if I don't keep my bedroom tidy, does that make me a bad boy? If I don't do this, and that's why sometimes we do see it in religion at times, if I don't do this, does that make me bad? Does that make me a sinner? Does that make me guilty? Does that make me shamed? So that's why we just have to be, especially with children and young people, as we said, brains are still forming. They're still working out what's helpful and what's not. That's why we do have to be very careful how we share certain concepts with children and young people. Yeah. And it's important to remember, that's why I was saying at the end there, that sometimes this term of, oh, that's my OCD, can be thrown around. It's really important to remember that those that have OCD, this is something they can't control. They can't just stop. There's no point saying to them, stop washing your hands so often and come and eat dinner. Because if we've got to mental health disorder phase, they're going to find it exceptionally difficult to say no. So there's no pleasure necessarily that comes from these compulsions. There might be a temporary relief of their anxiety, like checking doors, checking locks, etc. But what we know is that the cycle still continues. So we have to think very carefully about how we approach it.
Okay.
Thank you. And then here I've just got depression. So A mental health disorder, again, characterized by persistently depressed mood or loss of interest in activities, causing significant impairment in daily life. So this is another one that's, sometimes, unfortunately, children and young people can be told things like, oh, what have you got to be sad about? You've got everything you need in life. Why are you sad, etc. Well, what we know is just in the same way, you remember when we had the worry slide up, and I said that there's many things that we as adults worry about that children are also worrying about. Those are some of the things that can lead towards this depression. And the difference with depression is that this isn't, okay, well, I feel sad in this moment for this particular thing, and then my sadness is gone by the next morning. That's not depression, that's feeling sad. And that's fine, because that's a normal, there are things that will happen in life that might make us sad. What we're thinking about in relation to depression actually being diagnosed is it's got to be happening for a period of time. Yeah, we've got to be also seeing it in more than one area. Yeah, so we wouldn't be, okay, well, I'm sad tonight at home, but actually the rest of the week when I'm somewhere else, I'm not showing any of these symptoms. So the symptoms have got to be present in more than one area as well. And we know that it can impact eating. It can impact weight gain or loss. Sometimes it can impact tiredness. Talking about feeling guilty, worthless, feeling empty, feeling numb. And sometimes as well, there can be a sense of just a lack of pleasure. So not feeling, things that maybe they liked to do before, feeling like they can't do those particular things anymore. Yeah. So thinking about those as well. So those were our kind of anxiety and depression disorders. So just thinking directly, obviously there's a huge mental health spectrum. So we haven't we haven't shared everything, but just some of the specific points in relation to anxiety and depressive disorders that are things that can be looked out for.
Okay.
So what we're going to think about now is that not everything is a mental health disorder. Yeah. One thing I did actually leave one off that I wanted to put on there, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay. But we've got so autism, yeah. So those who are aware, so autism spectrum condition, it's been known for forever as ASD, autism spectrum disorder. But more and more, there's conversation within the community to change the D to a C, and for us to start using the term autism spectrum condition. Because the idea is that those who are neurodivergent, there's not a disorder. It's not that there's anything wrong with that person. It's just that they see the world in a different way. They see the world through a different lens, should we say. So a broad range of conditions characterized by challenges with social skills, repetitive behaviors, speech, and nonverbal communication. ADHD, so, is marked by an ongoing pattern of inattention and or hyperactivity, impulsivity that interferes with functioning or development. Yeah. So again, it's not looking at it as a disorder necessarily, but it is, even though it is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, but just within the community, there's more conversation about neurodiversity not being seen as that there's something wrong with you. It's just that you see the world through a different lens. And because the world, society, is pretty much, focused towards those who are neurotypical, that's why it will seem as though it's a difficulty. Because because everything is geared towards those who are neurodiverse to not be able to navigate, because we haven't created a world for those who are neurodiverse to actually dwell in. And then the other two things here that are not mental health disorders, we've got learning difficulties. So those are things like dyspraxia, dyslexia, dyscalculia. So they're types of special educational needs which affect areas of learning, such as reading, writing, spelling, and maths. And then we have learning disability, which is linked with the way that someone's brain actually works. So it may make it harder for someone to learn, understand, or do things. And it can feature reduced intellectual ability and difficulty with everyday activities. And the other thing to remember is that a learning disability is something that affects someone for their whole life. So when we think about a mental health disorder, that's something that, you aren't born with a mental health disorder. Yeah. And that's why we look at these different things in terms of autism, ADHD, learning difficulties, and disabilities. We have to make sure that there's a very clear distinction, because sometimes they could be a bit muddy. And the only other thing that I was going to add on to this one is just behavioral concerns.
Okay.
So for different reasons, there could be a child or a young person that's got behavior difficulties. Behavior difficulties can be as a result of a mental health disorder, but having difficulties with behavior is not a mental health disorder in itself. Yeah. So if someone's lashing out or can't concentrate, which might be ADHD, or having problems communicating, which could be autism, we've got to start looking at what different umbrellas we put these things under. And the reason I say that is because when we get to the slide about what we can do to help, part of this is making sure that we're seeking the correct help and talking to the correct people.
Cool.
So sometimes, children, there are some children that can be very quick to be labeled bad, or quick to be labeled behavioral difficulties, or, there's an issue with how they think or what they do. So it's just, I always say, knowledge is key, health is wealth. Right. So if we know what we're looking for, and if we're more clued up in the differences between these different labels, then hopefully when we're going to seek help, we won't just be able to have, a teacher saying, oh, they're just bad. Well, no, actually, maybe they're depressed, or maybe they're anxious, or maybe something else is happening for them. Yeah.
Okay.
And then moving on to, so again, I did share at the beginning that we were going to have a bit of a think about self-harm and what we call suicidal ideation. So these two terms are definitely things that I think within children, teenagers, adolescents, young people can be quite scary. Yeah. So people can be quite worried. If a child says, I want to end my life, or I don't want to live anymore, that can be a really distressing thing, both for the adult hearing it, and for the child that's been brave enough to share that's how they feel. Yeah. Yes. But what I'd really encourage us all to do is to look at these kind of communications through a lens of bravery, as opposed to something to shut down or say, don't think that, or don't do that. Because what we know is, as soon as we shut things down, they don't really go away. They probably just go underground. And actually, when things go underground, they can be even more dangerous. Yeah. So when we're thinking about self-harm, so self-harm can include things like cutting, burning, scratching, biting, hair pulling, head banging. Each child and young person's relationship with self-harm is complex and is different. Some children won't even know why they're doing it. Yeah. What we do know is that the reason it can be addictive, or the reason that some young people and adults do it as well, but the reason sometimes it can be done is because of those pain relieving endorphins that actually rush through the body when we experience pain. Yeah. It may not be that you can understand as the adult why this child or adolescent is doing it. But what we have to remember is that we have to at least be as calm and responsive when hearing about it, so that the child or young person will continue to tell us. Yeah. It's also thinking about, sometimes it can be indicated by, you might see that your child or young person is covering their arms more, or is, not wanting to do PE, or maybe they're a teenager and they usually wear, little short tops, but all of a sudden they don't want to wear short tops anymore. Or a boy might not want to wear shorts anymore. He's only wearing trousers, that kind of thing. So those are the types of things we might look out for, a sudden change in behavior. So we're not saying just because someone wears long trousers, it means they're doing this. But we are saying if you notice a change in behavior, that might be a bit of an inkling as to something might have changed. Yeah. And then if we go to the next one, when we think about suicidal ideation, ideation basically means thoughts. So ideas, cognitions, thoughts. So the next, if we go to the next one, please. And these are fleeting or persistent thoughts of no longer wanting to be alive. Again, as I was saying at the beginning of the last slide, for those hearing it as adults and also for those sharing it as children, young people, this can be a very difficult thing to talk about. I have experience of working in what we call a crisis team in a hospital. So those are those who are under 18 who, for a number of different reasons, feel that they want to end their life. And it is, really heartbreaking to see some of what families have to go through in relation to these experiences. But what I can definitely say is talking about it, listening, validating. I'm going to say normalizing. It might sound weird for me to say normalize it. But the reason I say that is because I more mean normalizing having thoughts that overwhelm us and not knowing what to do with them. That's the part I would talk about in relation to normalizing. Because when we look here about, children who experience high levels of anxiety and or low mood, have experienced abuse, have adverse life experiences, they're being bullied or they're a bully, complex grief, complex family issues. So again, things that we might look at and think, oh yeah, that's just mum and dad arguing. We don't know the impact that that's having on the child.
That's right.
Yeah. So it's really thinking about when I say normalizing, I'm not saying normalize having the thoughts. I'm saying, okay, Timothy, you told me this. Thank you so much for letting me know that that's how you feel. Obviously, in whatever words feel comfortable for you. But let me, thank you so much for letting me know how you feel. Let's think about what we can do that will help you not feel like this anymore. As opposed to sometimes, our initial emotional response can be, no, you don't want to do that. Don't say that. And then it can very quickly turn into hiding. It can very quickly turn into shame and guilt around having these thoughts. Well, really, it's about how do I, as a young person, learn how to manage my emotions? Because a lot of times this is about not knowing how to manage my emotions. And we also have to remember that sometimes when children, young people say this, there isn't necessarily what we call intent to end life. So we look at a thought in relation to how much intent there is. So for example, I might say, I don't want to be alive anymore. However, I may mean that actually the amount of bullying I'm going through, I really just want the pain to go away.
Just stop.
So not that I actually want to end my life, but actually I just, I don't feel, complex grief. I've experienced a lot of grief in the past 2 years and I'm 8 and I have no idea how to manage that. So actually maybe I also don't want to be alive anymore. But what we do have to make sure is that we never tell anybody that, no, that's not how you feel, or no, that's not how you mean. Because if we go back to that notion of my voice mattering, it's really important for whatever that child is trying to share with you, that you hear and that you're able to sit with. Yeah. So if we go on to the next one. So, so we've spoken a bit about anxiety disorders. We touched on depression. We've touched on, self-harm, suicidal ideation, what some of those reasons might be. And the reason I put this here in terms of parents, primary caregivers, as well as responsible adults is because if we were to think of that first slide where it said 1 in 5 children 8 to 16 are experiencing something, 1 in 4 17 to 19 are experiencing something. Even if you don't yourself have a child, you are going to be in and around, whether it be in your church community, your prayer community, your your friendship circles. You could be an auntie, a big sister, a whoever, family circles. You could be a dad, a brother, an
Yeah.
uncle.
Yeah.
So in terms of what, there's so much help out there, and I didn't kind of link anything directly because I was aware that it's worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
But I think these are the four kind of points that I would say are the most important things that you can do. So the first point, be observant. Yeah. We're all, as adults, we are all busy. We're running, we're working, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're cooking dinner, we're going to the parent teacher meeting, we're doing everything, right? The being observant is a really important part because it's things like noticing, oh, he used to like hockey, but he hasn't been in the past 6 weeks. Oh, he used to always come out of his room and cook with me. He hasn't come out of his room in the past, 3-4 days, etc. I've noticed that, as a little one, maybe I used to shower them, I used to bathe them, and now all of a sudden they're being very secretive about being bathed, etc. If they're of the age that you would still be bathing them as a parent. So the observant bit is that. Looking out for those changes, noticing when things have shifted. And some changes are developmentally appropriate. Some are not. Some might be showing that there's a possible change in mental health. And the earlier we can catch things, the better. And the way we catch things, as we say, is by talking. Yeah. I asked us to reflect at the beginning about how much our voice was heard when we were children. And I know that generationally, again, culturally, societally, depending on what age you are and where you lived and how you grew, you may not have been talked to by your parents much.
True.
You may have been told, all right, it's adult time now, you go in the back. Or you may have had great conversations when you were younger. But what we know is that talking, communicating, sharing your own vulnerabilities as well. So some parents ask me, how do I share? I can't share my worries with my child. They're adult worries. What I usually say is sharing it in a child appropriate way is all right. So saying things like, mummy gets anxious when she has to talk at work as well. When mummy's in a group at work, mummy gets anxious as well, or mummy gets a tummy ache as well. Nerve, exactly. So thinking about how you can appropriately share that you too are vulnerable, that you too as an adult get things wrong, worry about stuff without putting burden on your child, because you're not trying to burden them, but you're trying to let them, just like how we have to model how, when they're first learning to cut food on a plate, when they're, we model all of those things. So we also have to model communication. Yeah. And then actively listen. So sometimes we talk, in this notion of listen to listen, not listen to respond. So actively hear what your child is telling you. So, oh, I'm worried about the assembly tomorrow. Oh, don't be worried. It'll be all right. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. No. Let's actively listen. Let's hear what the child is worried about. Why are you worried about the assembly? What's happened? Do you want me to help you do anything, etc.? And then seeking professional help is a really, really important part. Yeah. So see, I can see that I'm flashing. I don't know why I'm flashing.
It's just your internet fluctuating.
Oh no. Okay.
It's
Can you still hear me?
Good. You're good.
Okay. And seeking professional help is that really important part, right? You've been observant, you've talked about it, you've listened. Sometimes we need help. Yeah. And I liken things like physical health to mental health, right? If your child had a broken leg, you wouldn't say, it's all right, we'll just see how it goes. Just put on a little tubey grip and it will be fine. No, you'd go to the hospital. Yeah. And I always say to people, we need to start looking at mental health in exactly the same way. Yeah. It's not just, oh, it's all right. Just, no. If you've done the first couple of steps, you've monitored it, you've talked about it, speak to somebody, speak to school, speak to college, GP, doctor, whatever it is you need to do to get that support.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next one.
Next one, I think we were at the end, I think.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's good.
So we've come to the end. I think we're on 10 o'clock, I think. So that means we've got about half an hour if there are any questions or reflections on what I've spoken about so far. And then in okay, great. And then this QR code here is just, you can either do it now,
the same one,
or you could at the end. It's basically the same one, so it's the same code, but this is just the post. Okay. So this is just, after this, very short presentation and looking at things, how do you feel now, for example, in relation to post training? Do you think there's any more? Yeah, exactly. So yeah, thank you for listening. And yeah, any questions or reflections?
Excellent. Thank you so much. Get in touch. Yes, I am displaying all Janine's details as we're going along. So even if you didn't catch them on this last slide, if you go back to the video, any point in time, you will see all her details there. And please, like I say, make connections. Please do make that connection. So both of us are back on the screen now, so I'll start throwing my questions. So please, everybody, feel free to send in your questions as well. And I'm sure our guest is more than willing to answer your questions. So this is where I would like to start. So thank you again. Really appreciative of your time. My first question is, among the ethnic minority, what are your professional observation as to how we respond to the mental health of our children? And what are the stigmas that you've encountered that we need to do away with in order to get the appropriate help for our children?
Great question. I guess I'll start by saying, in and amongst the kind of race and racism teaching that I do across the board, I use the term global majority.
Okay.
Just because I think that even the term ethnic minority in itself, I think, links us with the ongoing perpetuating cycle of we are in the minority. So just to think about, because when you really think, we are the global majority in relation to exactly. Yeah. So but thinking of that directly, I would say the main, whether it be called issue or thing that comes up, is the sense of we don't talk our business outside.
True.
If I'm just gonna call a spade, and I'm Caribbean descent. My parents are Guyanese. I'm currently in Barbados. I'm doing projects here. I've worked with different people across the diaspora, and I would say that is the one thing that I think combines us, is this slightly unhelpful, I get where it comes from, but this unhelpful notion of you don't talk your business outside. If something is happening in the house, it stays in the house. You don't go and talk to anybody about it. And not discounting the importance of prayer, because prayer is exceptionally important, but this notion of we can pray it away. We don't need to get psychological help. We don't need to get psychiatric help. We don't need to go to the doctor. We're good. And I think a mixture of those two things, unfortunately, is why so much abuse goes talked about, goes unsaid. That's why help isn't, because unfortunately, if we're taught to keep things to ourselves and not share, we then, inadvertently, we're going to get a lot of shame and guilt. Because then if nobody's talking about it, then how do I know that actually 1 in 5 children feel anxious?
Yeah.
I'm probably going to think it's only me that feels like this.
Has that
when really, in my class of 30, there might be another 10
God
children that feel
knows how
like how I
many.
feel.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that what you said there about the stigma of it, I think the conversation has to start at home. So we have to be having conversations with our
Like
children,
this one.
like, exactly. If you ever felt anxious, insert name here, you can talk to me. If anybody was ever hurting you, don't ever feel afraid to come and say it to me, because I'll always believe you. Those kind of conversations that generationally, I
Needs
believe
to
in the
be.
global majority we weren't having. I think are conversations we have to start having now.
Yeah. And I also think it's also a part of still giving that child a voice.
Yes.
That whatever you say to me is equally as important to me as anything I say to you. And I'm going to
Exactly.
listen. I want
Yes.
to listen. I'm interested in what you have to say. And it is important what you have to say.
Yes.
I'm not
Yes.
going to throw it away. I'm not going to be offlandish or anyhow about it. I'm going to take it seriously. I might
Yeah.
not appear to the child to take it seriously in the sense that I don't want to panic the child. But
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely is something that I'm going to be taking up. For instance, that, if my child, I mean, I have experienced something like this with my daughter in primary school. There was a day we got in the car in the morning, we're about to go, and this girl was like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And I'm like, we've never been down this road. And the one thing about my children is, even when they're sick, you ask them to stay at home, they say, no, I want to go. So when you
Yeah.
now get in the car and the child said, I don't want to get out of the car and I'm not, then there's a problem. And you need to go in there immediately. And that's what I do. I go in there immediately and find out what the problem was. And just like what you're saying, my daughter had a troubled child who is under the local authority, who's in the school, who didn't know the difference between black and Asian and was calling her Kpaki, 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 and was always
Oh
hitting her.
gosh.
And unfortunately, she had a teacher as well who I think had an element of racism, who did not take it seriously.
Right.
So I just bypassed her and I went to the head and I said, look, I
Yeah.
don't care if it's a government child, local authority child. My child is also a child. So the troubled child cannot come and be affecting my child. So I believe it's your job to make sure that that child does not inflict pain or trouble on my child. So,
Yeah.
you are the custodian in this hour. They've given that child to you. So I need my child not to be attacked by this person.
Yeah.
And that was the end of it. To be honest, that was the end of it. But there were subsequently other things as well. And I have to be honest with you, please, just, I hope people will learn from this. I'm sharing my personal experience because, like you said, we keep our business to our business and we don't let other people know that we go through stuff. But there was a day, and I believe it's the grace of God that is making my child to be alive today, because that particular child also has severe asthma. Not knowing there was a day, a whole gang of children ganged up on this child and felt so claustrophobic that the child fell down and couldn't
Yeah.
breathe, was panicking, was a panic
Yeah.
attack. And the school called us thinking it's an asthma attack. Do you know, Jeannie, that child did not tell me until a few years ago that was not actually an asthma attack. That what actually
Wow.
happened was a whole group of these children, almost, she can't count the number of children that it was, and she just couldn't breathe and she collapsed because
Wow.
they were
Yeah.
a whole gang of them. Now, a child that already has asthma, can you imagine what that could
Yeah.
have led to?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
on that day, I felt so bad. I felt like I failed my child, that my child could. We went to the doctor said there was nothing, the asthma is under control and everything. And I just felt like, the day I was told, I wept. Even as I'm talking to you, it's very
Of
emotional.
course, yeah, no, it would be. It would be.
It's very emotional. So again, um, I I always asked why she never said anything, why the child never
Mm,
spoke out and said this is the situation. And I
hmm.
don't know how many other children is
Yes. Yeah.
experiencing that
Yeah. Yeah.
and has led
And I
to
think,
something. Go on.
yeah, no, I was just going to say, and I think, first of all, thank you for sharing that, because I think this is what we talk about in relation to needing to hear people's voices and needing to hear people share that sometimes things happen that we don't know what to do.
Do.
As children, as adult, and thankfully that, your child experienced a parent who, was, in that first example, went down to the school and said,
Mm,
absolutely not, we need to do something about this. And unfortunately, there are a number of children that won't have that advocate,
mm,
that won't necessarily have somebody to go down to the school and say, no, we're not doing this, we need, etc., etc. And I think that, as you said there about why, there are a number of reasons that children find it hard to share.
mm,
They're not
mm,
always negative, they're not
mm,
always that they don't have
mm.
people that will listen or whatever. Sometimes it is, as we say, that anxiety. What will happen? I don't want to get this person into trouble. I don't want to worry mummy. Mummy's
Yeah,
always running
yeah,
around busy. I
yeah.
don't want to worry mummy. So there could be loads of different reasons why a child or young person doesn't share. But that's
Mm,
why all we can do as parents is try to keep giving the spaces. So you see at the
mm.
end there where I was saying, be observant,
And
talk,
talk,
actively listen.
listen. Yeah.
Exactly. Give those spaces as much as possible. Different people have them in different ways, whether it's around the dinner table, whether
Mm,
it's, if you've got more than one child, we always say as much as possible. Yes, have group outings as a family. It's
mm,
also really important to have individual time with each
mm,
child. So
mm,
they've got that space that if they wanted to share something, they could. And I know it's not easy. We talked about some of the socioeconomic factors as to why sometimes, children don't have as much time with their parents as we could. Um, but as I said, I think that main thing about listening, talking, observing has got to be like the first step.
mm. Wow. It really is, there is a lot to cover, and I just want to say something
Mm,
regarding the first thing you said in your answer to us, is that sometimes we feel we can pray things away. I want to
mm.
cover that quickly. The
Mm-hmm.
Bible advocate that we get help. Okay?
Right.
The Bible
Yep.
doesn't say it's a stigma, it's wrong. The Bible does not say any of those things. So
Yep.
it is okay, whatever the situation is. Like you said, if my child had a broken leg, I would go to the hospital. I will call,
Yep.
go to A&E. I will call an
Yep.
ambulance. I will call 111. Whatever I need
Yep.
to do to alleviate the pain or suffering that the child is going
Mm-hmm.
through. And mental health is exactly the same. I was told
Yes.
by one of your colleagues that there's no health without mental health. So
There you go.
it's all part of it. So please don't say you can pray it away. I don't care
Mm-hmm.
what any pastor, denomination, man of God, woman of God is saying. The
Mm-hmm.
Bible does not object to us getting professional expert help. So please, if your child is going through anything, your GP is probably your first point of call. I don't know. There are self-referral that I know people can
Mm-hmm.
do nowadays online. They're
Yep.
constantly telling us about it on radio and things like that since the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm talking about UK, but please do find out in that country, wherever you are. But I think people do have access to first point of call, medical help, that kind of thing, wherever they are across the globe. I
And
don't
I
know
just
how
wanted to
much.
say on,
Go on.
so I just wanted to say very quickly off the back of that, I train therapists as part of my role, and what I really try to kind of instill in the therapists that I work with and that I supervise is that if I have somebody who comes into my therapy room who is of faith, whatever faith that might be,
Mm, mm,
my
mm,
aim is not to tell you that the therapy is instead of. Any good therapist is going to want to do things alongside you. So whether that's synagogue, mosque, church, wherever,
whatever
right?
it might be.
Whatever denomination, mountaintop, wherever, right? We should be working in tandem,
Together.
in collaboration with you. Yeah. So for me, I will obviously, sometimes have conversations when I was working in the NHS. I would speak with local priests, imams, etc., to kind of say, look, what do we need to understand from a therapy perspective? What do we need to understand about the Bible, about the Quran, about the, wherever into the Torah? What do we need to understand so that we can actually think more about how can we use the word to support the therapy? Because there's no point me trying to like separate it. Because if you're of
If you're
faith,
deeply
regularly going to
rooted,
church, etc., if you're
yeah,
deeply rooted in it, there's no point me coming and being like, oh well, no, we need to understand it. And like I was talking about in relation to OCD, unfortunately, there is quite a high prevalence of what we call taboo OCD. So it may be OCD directly in relation to religion, or directly in relation to at times those thoughts getting a little obsessive in relation to
religion.
it might be the commandments, it might be
Yeah.
going to this notion of hell and heaven, so this notion of being a sinner. So sometimes those ideas in relation to the Bible can turn into OCD because of the excessive worry about sinning or about etc. And like I say, this is not about splitting this up. I would like to believe, as I say, I would like to believe, I grew up in the church, I believe in God. I would like to believe that God wants me to go to therapy.
He wants you to be well.
Yeah, he wants me to be well. So,
Yeah.
if he's presenting me with a therapist, why would I not go to them?
Go, yeah.
Yeah.
And some of the people that actually gave us the instruction of what Jesus said, they were doctors themselves, they were physicians. So
there you go.
He didn't have a problem with that. So God definitely does not have a problem. One of the Bible books says, I wish above all things that you are well. So
Right.
God does want us to be well. So, and that well, everybody needs to know, includes your mental well-being, and in this case the mental well-being of our children. I see our time is quickly going very fast. Well, that's what happens when you're having so much fun. As we're coming towards the end of time, I'm wondering, is there, in your line of profession, is there anything you want to give us to say, this is your takeaway, this is what take with you, go and implement in your house concerning your children? If you had an opportunity to speak to many churches who might listen through this forum, what would you say to the body of Christ as a whole regarding the mental well-being of our children, what we need to be doing? I mean, for me personally, I'm always talking about being proactive, giving our children a voice, a fantastic theme. Because like I said, and you mentioned it, some of us grew up in an environment where you are seen and not heard, and you only speak when you're spoken to, and all those kind of thing, and some people just replicate that as a parent. They didn't come out of the box and say, well, what can I do different? So what would you say to us, generally, parents, body of Christ, mental well-being of our children? What should we take away?
Okay. When you were talking there, I had a flashback to me in like Sunday school at like 6.
Okay.
And this image of me like sitting, like in Sunday school, and they would talk about, you'd sing like hymns about Jesus loving children, and like suffer the little children to come
Children to
onto
come
me
on to
and
me.
whatever, right? I just had this flashback of that, right?
I hope it's a good
And
one.
yeah, no, it was good. I used to
Okay,
love the
okay,
hymns.
okay.
I used to love the hymns, I tell you. This Little Light of Mine was my jam. Um, so, and I think that's what I'm thinking about in terms of really providing a space. And as you said, body of Christ, church, family, home. I think my response is the same across the board. Bring children to you to be heard, to be listened to be valued, to not be, oh well, you're just a small human being, so it doesn't really matter what you're saying. No, actually, children are the closest. I feel like children are the closest to God, right? In terms of they're so
Suffer little
fresh
children to
and
come on
new,
to me. Yes.
And I just think that we have to hold them. We have to. Unfortunately, in the world that we live, they are often experiencing awful things because their voice isn't heard. Yeah, they're often experiencing, the anxiety, the depression that we spoke about, the abuse, etc., the difficult experiences. So listen to them, hear them, talk to them. As I said, that last slide about being observant, we're not always going to get children that can just articulate exactly what they want to say. The drama therapist in me is saying, use stories, read books. There are so many books, when we talk about global majority as well, children, there are so many more books now with children that are reflecting what our children look like.
Yep.
Yeah. And, there are books, you can Google them, obviously read them in advance for yourself to check they're all right. But, books that talk about emotional health.
Yeah.
How do I make friends? Bereavement, grief, and so many books that help us think about these things, that if you can't find the words yourself, that there are ways to think about that. And for our teenagers, for me, it's again generationally, I think it's not ignoring social media.
Okay.
I think as adults, we often like, oh, well, I don't get all that top tick. I don't get that, or that, like that. We're still all on, we're all still on Facebook, like, so it's thinking about, Instagram, TikTok, all these different things that, know what your child is doing online. Yeah. Online, unfortunately, online bullying, grooming, etc., is at an all-time high.
It is.
This is not to scare anybody. This is just to make people aware. So knowing, if you're that parent that has to ask the child to come and turn on the Wi-Fi, take a little course. There's so many courses in child online safety.
Yeah.
We're not asking you to be a coder or a computer programmer, but, know what they're doing, know how to do the online safety tools on their mobile phones.
Yeah.
Children should not have access to absolutely everything on the internet. They should not just be able to Google anything they want to. Yeah. So it's just, so I say that for teenage little children as well, but because little children love an iPad, but definitely for the teenagers and the slightly older ones, have that real sense of what they're doing online, who they're talking to, etc. And for the younger ones, as I say, really continue for both. Really continue making those talking spaces available so that they can have some time with you as and when and share.
It's sad. The two teenagers that murdered Brianna. I don't know whether you've heard about it.
Yeah. I saw they were sentenced yesterday, I think.
Yeah, I watched the documentary, and it's amazing the website that girl was going on to. They call it Red Room or Red Tape or so, and I've never heard of it in my life.
Yeah.
And the psychologist that was talking says the room that girl was going into, apparently real murder take place on that website. And she was frequently going on that site, not being bothered and getting thrilled and excited about it. But meanwhile, the psychologist that was interviewed, she said even when police officers go to that site, they have to get therapy afterwards.
Yeah, because of what they, I'm sure, because of what they can see and hear. Yeah.
So, but because she had undiluted, undisrupted access,
Mm-hmm.
unhindered access,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it brought her into that dark world.
Yeah.
And look at the consequence of what it produced.
Yeah.
And sadly,
And
there's
this is
no
why, yeah.
3 lives, as far as I'm concerned,
Yeah.
3 lives were
Yeah,
lost.
definitely. Definitely. And this is why we say, as I go back to it, that observant part
Exactly.
is so important. We're not, we can't be everywhere all the time. We know this. But there has to be, there are certain cases that you hear about and you think, why was this teenager able to, so yeah. And I think it's about also, sorry, last point as well from me, I think, as the adult as well, in relation to the child, if if you're dealing with your own trauma, if you're dealing with your own, you know, history or of difficult experiences, it's obviously going to be difficult for you to then parent a child in a particular way. So you accessing, as the adult, you accessing the support that you need in order to help your child is also really, really important.
I think that's a good place, like you said. The adult themselves, if you need help, you get help. And then you can
Yeah,
be a helper to your own child, or you can be a better
exactly.
parent for that child as well.
Yeah.
Ginny, we are so,
Yes.
so grateful. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. I love your smile. Thank you for the smile as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
You've
you.
made it fun and exciting. I hope this will not be the last time that we'll be seeing you. Even though when I spoke to you, I did say that I think this is a beginning of a good relationship to come. So thank
Yes.
you for sharing your wealth of knowledge with us. And we wish you all the best for the project that you're currently doing. And
Thank
we look
you.
forward to seeing you very soon by the grace of God. So
Thank
thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank
All
you.
right
Thank
then.
you.
Thanks everyone.
God bless you. We really
Thank
appreciate
you.
you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye. Bye. Everybody, that is Ginny Wilson. Please do go to the website. The website is slido.com. The code, I've done it. I noticed not many people have done it. If you can help Ginny to do that, that will be really helpful. The code to put in is 906. I'll just display that again so that we can all see. Is 906 996. And it just asks you the question. We should have done one at the beginning and one at the end. I've done both of it. So please, if you can do that. I don't know whether I can put the barcode back up, and hopefully you can scan that barcode or something like that. Yeah, I think this might be the barcode. Let me see if it is the barcode. Yeah, that is the barcode again. If you've just got your phone as I'm displaying it, you can just scan it. It will take you to the website. If you can just help her to answer those questions, as when we start, when we finish, where we were, in relation to our knowledge of what has just been shared with us. Okay, so everybody, I want to say thank you. I did express if anybody wanted to help us towards the honorarium that we were going to be given to Ginny. So one person did reach out to me, which I've expressed my gratitude. If anybody still wants to do that, please let me know. I now have Ginny's details. Honestly, I would like to do the transfer immediately because she has done us a good service already, and I don't like delaying people's money. Is just not me. So if you do want to contribute towards the honorarium, let me know, and that's totally up to you. Okay, so I hope we've been thoroughly furnished and blessed with all this information, and I pray that we're going to put it to fantastic use by the grace of God. What more could I say? You've heard it. I'm just going to say we probably need to go and look at the video again and reflect upon it. I think that's about all I can say. So at this juncture, thank you for the grace of that extra 30 minutes that we've taken today. God bless each and every one of you. So as always, Archbishop and myself, we want to hand you over to the Father, to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit. God bless you all. Thank you very much, and see you soon. Please remember, tomorrow is Redeeming the Time with my boss. Don't forget. So I'll see you on the side of Redeeming the Time if the Lord permits. So until then, take care, everybody. God bless you all.
Another rainy afternoon, but it's okay. I better find something to do, no time to waste. 'Cause I've been trying to ignore the noise inside. I need some answers by the end of the night. And the sun is shining. Can you feel it now? There's a promise in the sky. After all the rain is gone, fears filled our airwaves. So I turn off my radio. After all, where there is life, there's hope. And I try to fight this fear with faith inside. I know this demon's looking for a place to hide. Lord, give me all the strength I need to carry on. So I'm still standing when the morning comes. And the sun is shining. Can you feel it now? There's a promise in the sky. After all the rain is gone, fears filled our airwaves. So I turn off my radio. After all, where there is life, there's hope. Oh, yeah, yeah. I refuse to stay silent. This much I have learned, yeah. When it seems like there's no way out for me, that's when the tide starts to turn, yeah. And the sun is shining. Can you feel it now? There's a promise in the sky. After all the rain is gone, fears fill our airwaves. So I turn off my radio. After all, where there is life, there's hope. And you gotta believe it. And the sun is shining. Can you feel it now? There's a promise in the sky. After all the rain is gone, fears fill our airwaves. So I turn off my radio. After all, where there is life, there's hope. Don't they know that where there's life, there's hope? Last thing that should ever die.